Recently, Eclipse made a video on combat initiation, and I'm just going to be going through some of the things he says about the game. The game is a really good game, but I just think that he gets a decent amount of stuff wrong, or he just has some really bad points.
Cool, and I had a great time playing. The only problem with all of the stuff that I've said so far is that, well, I've just finished covering it.
Just gonna complain about how this update didn't add much content when it added a considerable amount of content. But the thing is, this update was also a recode, so that would obviously take a ton of time.
To put it simply, as I mentioned earlier, I haven't played the game in roughly a year, more than a year. And coming back to the game now, if you had simply removed the final stage of the game that they just added out of the game completely and had it stop in the same stopping place that it did before, I likely wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between what I played back then and what I played now. Maybe there were a couple gears added, I couldn't tell. I don't think that there were any weapons added, so that's all the same stuff. And in terms of accessories and things that you can put on, in the same way that I mentioned in the previous video where I initially talked about this stuff, that stuff really doesn't have that huge of an impact on gameplay, and a lot of the time you could just take it out and nobody would notice. Well, it's the same thing on display here.
They did a ton of changes that absolutely affect the game, which not only in terms of balancing, but also the game itself. They added a few new modifiers, environmental destruction, the new map, and fixed a crap ton of bugs. And that's just what I could see on the doc of the changes they posted. That doesn't even cover everything. They did change a lot, and once again, this was a recode, not much of a content update, but still adding a bunch of content.
I'll say this until the end of time, but just adding passive stat bonuses is not that interesting for gameplay. And so I'll say that if they've been focusing the last year on adding more of these passive stat bonuses, I think that was a huge mistake versus adding actual active things that you go out of your way to use in the games. I also want to make it clear that I didn't look at the patch notes or anything when I first booted the game. I literally just hopped in, joined the first lobby that I saw, and started playing. There was some stuff that I noticed right away, like the fact that there was clearly a modifier that was being displayed, which would change the heights and sizes of all the different enemies, and I thought that was pretty neat. But for the most part, from the beginning all the way up until that last level, like I said, it didn't seem like there was any difference to what I was playing. And once again, to be clear, what was there before and what's there now is still awesome and still a ton of fun. So this isn't a knock at that. But it is saying that after a year hiatus, coming back to the game and having no new weapons, yeah, I was a little bummed.
No, they didn't spend a majority of the time doing stat changes. They spent a majority of the time making the new mode and recoding the entire game.
When I did get around to reading the patch notes, a lot of the stuff on there was stat changes and stuff like that. And once again, that's something that I look at and I'm like, is this really the priority right now, guys? So this part is sort of a knock at the developers. Seriously, how much time do you guys generally spend tweaking the stats of things? I don't know if you've forgotten, but this is a PvE game. And not only is it a PvE game, but it's a PvE game that pretty heavily relishes in the ability of making your character feel overpowered. And sure, a lot of the stuff on here was buffs, but that's not to say there weren't a fair few nerfs in the patch notes that I read about as well. And there will be nothing that feels more like a kick in the balls than having a bunch of stuff get nerfed in my PvE game.
It doesn't matter what type of game it is, balancing is really important, and you can still have your character feel very powerful.
Here I have two questions to ask. Number one, why did you spend time tweaking the stats and buffing and nerfing things instead of just adding more cool shit to use?
Why do you spend time making the game better and balancing it rather than just adding more stuff? Why does this take?
And number two, why are there nerfs to begin with? Why are we nerfing the players? Who's going to get mad? There's no way to get killed other than AI. Who's getting upset with this and requesting nerfs? What's going on?
There doesn't have to be someone to request a nerf for something to be nerfed. It's just balancing. You still have to balance a game, no matter if it's a PvP or a PvE game. It still needs balancing, because an unbalanced game affects the players. Even if they're going against bots, it still affects the player.
Now, but if anyone's been telling you that the game is wholly rejuvenated and they've done all this stuff, that's just not true.
I'm sure a major feature and a new level and many balancing changes isn't gonna fix this game along with the recode.